You are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. We are so glad that you are here. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can find the Marketing Should Be Fun show on any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. But most of all, we're so glad you're here, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. My name is Austin Savage. I'm the founder of Savage Content Collective, and I'm here with my good friend, Kelsey Zarko, who's the founder of Curate Social. Kelsey, we're continuing our spring cleaning for your marketing series today. We're getting tactical, just really breaking down some easy spring cleaning tasks that we can do. I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited. A tactical episode where we can do something. This is like my dream.
Which is like such a swing and which is like so fun. Like last week we were, kind of like overarching, talking about your mindset, which is very, very important and definitely still is the foundation of the things that we're talking about today. And if you haven't listened to that episode of the spring cleaning series, definitely go check it out. But today we're diving kind of all the way down into things specifically as I was kind of like putting my part of the list together. I was like, things that will take less than an hour for you to do that would actually like make a difference in your marketing.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I think if you're listening, I would just, get out a notebook, get out a pencil or however you take notes and let's get in there and do this. But first, it's your turn for this or that. And I'm so curious what it will be.
It is my turn. And, I thought long and hard about this. And, I really wanted to find something interesting, find something different than things that we've done before. And, we've talked about books. We've talked about, silly things like ketchup or mayonnaise. I think there was an episode of about that. We've gone to so many places. And, today I think we need to get a little deeper. We need to, really kind of dig into our mindsets, about the world and specifically about how we're building our agencies. So Kelsey, here's the question today.
I can't take you serious with this look on your face, but I'm ready.
Here's the question. So would you rather be known for innovation or be known for lack of a better word, for stability?
Wow. Okay.
I told you.
I did not drink enough coffee for this. This is a tactical, practical episode. Come on. Okay. Let me think about this for a minute. I'm going to say,
they of course are not mutually exclusive, but I think you get the dichotomy I'm going for. Yeah, let me be both.
I'm an Enneagram 3. I can be whatever I want to be.
I can be anything.
Anything you need me to be. I think I'm going to say stability. Stability. I think that would be a higher value for me personally. I appreciate being able to bring. One of the main reasons that I love working for my clients is that I get to take things off their shoulders, give them they're excited about their marketing and they're proud of it and they're happy to share it. And they didn't have to do it. And I think there's some stability in that of I don't always have to chase the next big thing and we can do things well without having to switch it up all the time. And I know, again, mutually exclusive, those things are not true. You can be stable and innovative. You can be innovative without chasing the next big thing, but that's my first off the cuff initial answer.
Yeah, totally. I had a very similar initial response to the question as I thought about it for myself. I'm well, both. I do want both as well. And I do think, like you said, stability is kind of way more important in a business like ours. Is there's so many processes you and I are doing in our respective businesses that are just repeated constantly. And obviously to be successful in those fronts, stability is so important. But as I framed it for myself of but what do I actually want to be known for?
Yes.
I was definitely not stability. So
yeah,
I think it would be innovation. I really like the idea of having ideas that, people haven't had before, or being able to push something to a level that people, don't usually see or don't usually experience. and, you know, those different kind of projects, which, you know, I'm doing projects all the time of like, what if I did this? What if I did this?
Yes.
And, you know, the ones that stick are usually in the sphere of some sort of innovation. So I think that would be my answer. A little bit of
that's fun.
innovation.
I like that question. I think that we definitely, it was a good one to show both of our personalities. Like we both can do both, but you definitely land more on the innovation side and I land more on the, okay, but let's bring some stability and process and rhythm to things. So that was fun.
Totally. That's a good one. Awesome. Well, today, like we said, we are digging deep, digging practical into just some specific things we can do to spring clean your marketing. Again, these are just kind of quick things. You don't need to take all of them, you know, but even just listening for not only the platforms that you leverage, you know, we want to talk through ideas for Instagram, for your email marketing, for blogs. And if you do have a podcast, just a few ideas for spring cleaning for your podcast as well. But just listen for those kind of easy ideas that are things that you can kind of plug into those open moments in your week as you are kind of planning for the rest of the year. So Kelsey, let's dive right in. I know Instagram is first up. What's first on our list of spring cleaning to-dos for Instagram?
Yes. Okay. Instagram is like my jam, my BFF, where I hang out. So I'm going to run through a couple of these. I love it. Okay. The first one, Instagram has a bio. I would say Instagram is one of the more prevalent platforms where bios are most read and used or looked at. Of course, they matter in a lot of places, but definitely Instagram. And so the thought here is just to run through it, look at yours, refresh it, make sure everything is still relevant to you. I know for both you and I, Austin, a lot of our clients in general, you kind of live in the same industry or world, but sometimes your services change or the way that you're going about doing your services changes or who you're targeting. So think through updating your bio with your current season, have a call to action. If there's not something that's like, click here or, you know, get a free something here or come hang out with me here, like something where they want to click and learn more. It's a great thing to add. Even just making sure maybe what somebody would be searching on Instagram. We talked recently on an episode about how Instagram has really beefed up their searchability and like their SEO and search keywords. So thinking through, do I have a couple words in my bio that maybe are unique to me versus just like, I love lattes and reading books. Like, well, everyone on Instagram does right now. So let's just, you know, set yourself apart a little bit. And then along with this, sprinkling that link in bio and make sure if you've got a link in bio or just links that you have there, a lot of times they're old. We forget to take them out. It's like an old blog post or an old event. Just clear that out. So refresh that up.
Love it. It's so common too, that we like go to a client's like link in bio and it's like, oh, we have like 32 links on this thing now that probably probably aren't needed. And we can probably be a lot more strategic about what we're really leading people towards and, you know, what those kind of like big ticket things that you really want to get people's attention would be for your brand. So I think that's awesome. And just like you were saying of updating your bio is just like, even if you've updated it in the past, you know, take a look at it, because I was just talking to somebody this past week and they were like, oh, does my bio still say that? And it was like just an old like offer that like doesn't even exist anymore. Yep. And so just the little things of like, just making sure that it still reflects you and your brand well.
Yeah. And even with your bio, if you want to switch up your picture, your profile picture, if you will, that's something fun that can just feel exciting and new too. And along with that, updating that, also think through auditing your highlights. So refresh your bio and then take a look at your highlights. Highlights are still important. I don't see them being as popular or like as used as much on Instagram. I know that the head of Instagram has even hinted at maybe like pulling highlights down into our feed. I'm curious what will happen with those, but it's something where we used to add things to them all the time. So there's probably, again, like you have 32 links in your bio. There's probably just some stories that you're like, I don't really need to feature these anymore. I could take out some things that are older. Maybe you have some new, maybe you have like an FAQ bubble or something like that. You could add something fresh to, change up what the covers look like, put in some behind the scenes, but it's worth just taking a quick look. And again, these are like under an hour tasks that you can just be clicking on. You know, you can flip through that while you're waiting in car line or whatever it is. That's a pretty simple one, but it's just important to keep things showing people that you are, you know, paying attention and being relevant and thoughtful with the way that you're showing your content.
Yeah. For highlights, I'm curious even for myself, because I've started thinking through just highlight opportunities for Savage content too, in addition to our clients. But what's like your recommendation, Kelsey, for the balance between like the personal highlights that are like fun to just like look through, the personal updates, things that are like that just people enjoy on that human level, and the FAQ, here's what we do, kind of like more offer driven highlights. What's kind of that balance you find for your clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some of it is so dependent, client by client, industry by industry. I'm also like I'm like a do as I say, not as I do, because I don't even know what my highlights look like. But I think I like having a start here or about me one, just because when people come to your page, I'm seeing Instagram being used more and more as almost a business card of like, hey, I'm going to go click over on your page and see like, what's my first thing? I want something easy to tap into and just get a lay of the land. I love having that. If FAQs or testimonials make sense in your industry, I mean, they make sense for all of us, but that can be an important thing to have on there just for people to see some social proof, even more than calling it like an FAQ or testimonial. I lean more towards the like social proof word, just because I feel like proof is a strong word that's like, hey, come see the different ways that, I've been able to make a difference for how I serve my people. I don't know that I save a whole lot of behind the scenes unless you kind of have like a funny or like a niche. Like for you, I could see you saving like a D&D highlight, because that's very true to who you are. And it's almost like a content pillar in itself. I don't know that I would save a whole lot of other things beyond that unless they had a specific topic or purpose. But that's just my 2 cents. I don't think that this is a hill to die on by any means.
No, I think that that's a good food for thought. I like it. I really like this next one. Very simple as well, but batch, save, and reuse top performing content. What does that look like?
I was just listening to a podcast about this the other day.
Let's go.
So grabbing your top performing content. You guys know, if you've listened to our podcast, that I am like a analytics and data junkie. But you can go into your professional dashboard and be able to sort so many different ways to see what has performed well. There are many analytics. You can search by things that have been viewed a lot, things that have been commented a lot. Think through like, was this viewed a lot? Was this content piece popular because it got to a lot of people, so it resonated?
Right.
Was this content piece popular because it brought in like my followers, like starting a conversation? Did this like just really hit deep with the people who were already here? You can take that in a lot of places, but take those things and think about how you could repurpose them in fresh ways. So this isn't just reposting exactly what you did beforehand, but maybe you think about how that, whatever that topic was that you shared, and maybe you pop it into like a new carousel post, for example, that's, hopping on Instagram right now. Or maybe it was an old, even high performing story that did well, that then you turn into a piece of content that lives on your feed. This can look so many different ways, but taking something that did well and thinking about a new, fresh way to share it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but just try a different type of option. And even thinking about how you could take this off of Instagram to your other platforms too. Maybe you make that into an email. Maybe it's a podcast episode, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I love that. And that's just such a good practice, honestly, to just put in place in general as well. It's just having tabs and even keeping a list like of things that did well. These are topics that, people were interested in. This is a style of post that did well. And that, kind of like testing content in your stories before it goes to your feed is like a huge strategy right now for Instagram specifically. And so, really keeping tabs also on like, what stories have I posted that people have responded to that, has led to the 6 or 7 DMs in my inbox about that moment or about that insight or, that experience. How can I take that and, bring it to my feed as well? And just keeping that going then throughout the year can really help you, one, always have content ideas of like, you have that bank of just things that have done well and that you can revisit. And two, can just kind of be that filter almost that you're also like putting new content ideas through of just understanding and knowing like what formats have done well for you, especially in the last year or so.
Yeah. I love looking back at this when I go to make calendars, or I would especially keep this one top of mind, not always just for spring cleaning, but come back to this when you feel frustrated or when you feel like, we all hit those points with our content where it's like, okay, this was going great and working, and now all of a sudden it's like crickets. So what happened? And instead of, burning your whole business down, thinking back through, okay, what is top performing right now? And do I just need to like maybe just turn the dial and just go like a slight different direction? I've got a client right now who I'm noticing there's a specific type of, she's a hair client. We've talked about her before. And there's a specific type of content now, like a thing you do to your hair that is like our top post like every week. And so I'm like, okay, I think that our people are telling us this is the direction they want to go in. So when you do grab that top performing content, not only is it helpful to repurpose, but sometimes it can just fine tune a little bit of your messaging for you.
Totally. This next one is so important, literally so important for Instagram specifically now. For those of you who maybe aren't aware, I think that it's easy maybe to overlook, especially if you're not super connected to the platform. But Instagram recently changed the way that your posts show up in your feed, specifically on your profile, to no longer be a square, but now it is a portrait like rectangle. So it's it's 4x5 now, right? Mm-hmm. And so now posts show up differently on your profile, which one, if you're doing graphics, should absolutely influence the size of graphics that you're creating. Do not create square graphics or post square photos on Instagram in most cases, but also you can go back, and Kelsey, I'm sure that you have specific insight on how to do this, but you can actually go back to old posts and make sure that they are filling the whole kind of like display on your profile as well. So what does that look like?
Yes, this is like my soapbox, not my soapbox, but my pet peeve of like, you guys, it's been 3 months. Let's fix these graphics now. Okay, I'm just going to go to my profile right now and show you how to do it or walk you through it. So if you go to your actual feed, if you're watching on the video, I just held my phone up. You can click on a post that maybe isn't configured how you would want it to. Maybe it just looks different. Something's cut off weird, or like your head is in a different spot than where you wanted it to be. So if you click that, 3 dots, you'll be able to click adjust preview. It's one of the options now. And then when you click on that, it will let you kind of move your photo around. So this certainly is, it's a preference thing. I think it's just a great, again, simple, small, little thing that will not take a lot of work, but just shows, okay, this person like put some thought toward this. This looks professional. This is well done. I certainly have clients where maybe it's a real estate photo, where it's a landscape photo. That's how the photos were taken. That's okay. It doesn't mean we say, hey, I'm not ever going to post this, but just being thoughtful about how you think it might show up now. And again, just use that adjust preview button to just make it look the way you want it to, so that when people come and see it, you feel proud of it. They feel invited into it. Simple step that can really make a big difference.
Totally. And I think even for those photos, especially for a photo driven account, absolutely, you're going to have photos that are still landscape. But as much as possible, just thinking through still, like, especially if you're doing a carousel of photos, like what photo can you lead with that you could scale up for, like on your profile, to fill that whole screen, even if it's only showing the center of the photo, that might still look engaging and still, really kind of communicate professionalism on that front. And then you're maybe hiding on the second or third slide, some of those other photos that might not display as well on your profile.
I love how granular we are getting in this episode. If you're listening, don't panic. Just little things really do communicate a big reward.
Yes. Okay. Speaking of granular, are you ready to shift to email marketing for a moment?
So ready.
Okay. This is one of the tiniest changes that you can make on your email marketing that literally actually makes a difference often. And statistically across email marketing, just even in like the past 10 years, this has kind of stayed fairly consistent. But one thing that you can do to your emails that a lot of people don't think about is adding a postscript to it. So under your signature, under your name, however you kind of sign off your emails and your email marketing, which if you don't do is also a great thing to add in, is for your emails to come from a person, not just from your organization as a whole. But underneath your name, adding PS, and then re-highlighting whatever that main call to action is. If you haven't listened yet, here's that episode link. PS, this is actually one of my favorite conversations we've ever had. Again, you can watch it here. Just that little kind of tag on to the end is shown to actually get a lot of engagement, and kind of just be that sort of last effort that can feel very personal, feels very kind of like direct, and often gets a lot of clicks. So if you aren't currently using a postscript in your emails, that is a very easy thing to add in that can be a big kind of like engagement increaser for your email efforts.
Yeah, it's a simple sentence that can be a huge win for you. So this was even a good reminder for me when we were putting these notes together. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go add that into this email I just wrote. So I love it.
I know. It's kind of funny because I do it for clients all the time. And I also for myself was like, why do I not do this for myself?
So we're right there with you, everyone listening. We are right here with you.
Just the little things. But on a similar vein, another kind of thing on the side of spring cleaning email marketing efforts is making sure that you have a template for your emails. And we mean that, of course, on like the layout side. Yes, if you don't already have a template set up in your whatever email marketing system you use, that's a very helpful thing to just be able to grab each time and, kind of plug and play, or just have those elements that you're just like duplicating each time. It makes it really easy to scale and keeps things moving forward. But also just making sure that your emails just are very similar every time you send them. And I think for you as a creator, for all of us as creators, as writers, as just people who are putting together these emails, it's really helpful when we're kind of going through the ideation process and just like structuring the email to just be able to like fit things into where they would go in our email. So we're not like reinventing them each time. We know, hey, in my emails, I share a new resource, up at the top. I have one call to action for one of my, primary offers, my signature, and then my postscript, or maybe it's a little bit more complicated than that. But that way, every single time you're just like, okay, this is going to go here. This is going to go here. This is going to go here. And you can just kind of like repeat that. And that's really helpful, not only for expectation for your audience, so that they open your emails, they know what to expect, they know even where to look for what they are interested in, but really helps you with consistency so that email marketing doesn't feel just like so overwhelming when you're like, oh my gosh, I have to create a whole thing. You're like, no, it's just plug and play week after week.
Yeah. You know how you and I often talk about how it's so hard to sit down to a blank piece of paper. Like even if you have like two sentences on the paper, it's just like, okay, I can do this. Very similar with an email template. You just get to sit down and not feel that overwhelm of everything is on my shoulders. You've got your template, just like you said, you can stay consistent. Yeah. You can get it done honestly pretty quickly. It doesn't even have to be a huge time commitment when you've already spent the time to make that template. So a great thing to sit down and make for spring cleaning right now is if you don't even have email marketing, or if email marketing feels complicated because you don't have systems in place yet, make that template. And most email, I would say all email platforms that you're using have templates ready to go. So you can even tap one of those and then tweak it a little more to what you want. So again, not sitting down to a blank piece of paper.
Totally. Such a difference maker. And it's literally what we do for clients as well. Like we, have multiple organizations that we're sending emails for, that like literally the template is almost exactly the same week after week. And it's not just because it's easier. It's literally because it helps our emails perform better and it helps us be more consistent. And for those organizations that we have even just made that shift for, it has helped their open rates, their engagement rates steadily increase, even just year over year, because people know what to expect, and because people, start looking forward to the types of emails that they are receiving and are expecting to receive. So really, really great thing that you can do on that front. Third thing on the email marketing front is re-engagement campaigns. And I want to pare this down of like, you might have heard of this, of like, are you re-engaging like leads who have kind of gone cold or who aren't engaged in, what you're doing anymore? And that can sometimes feel really overwhelming because it's like, what do I do, with these older leads? And at some point, you might want to think about, purging some of the contacts that you have that aren't engaged in your marketing anymore. But before you do that, putting some effort into re-engaging them and trying to kind of get them back into the fold is really, really helpful. And one of the ways that you can do this is just targeting people who are either unengaged or who are less engaged in your content and sending them your top resources for fill in the blank. We do this a lot for re-engagement campaigns for clients at Savage Content, of our top podcast episodes about parenting. Our most popular resources from 2024, at the start of the year, or like 3 articles you need to read about fill in the blank topic that really connects back to those core topics that you are addressing. And that's just it's an easy way to make sure that you are sending, something that relates to your brand. And it's an easy way to really just get those kind of like last people who might still be interested in what you offer, but maybe just haven't been interested in the specific updates or resources that you've been sending lately, to kind of like trigger your email marketing system now to say like, okay, they've opened an email, like they are kind of like re-engaged, and to kind of get them back into your ecosystem, for lack of a better word. But that can be just such an easy thing to do, even if it's just 1 or 2 emails that you're sending, rather than this whole campaign that you feel like you have to build out. That really can make a difference in the size of your audience.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think this is a perfect way to kind of pair some of those topics we even talked about with social media, is looking back at even your top performing Instagram posts or Facebook posts or whatever that is. Yeah. Take that and use that to kind of build out some of your re-engagement campaign if you want. That could be a perfect way to just take that piece and, maybe lengthen it out or recreate it for an email and use that as what you're sending. I love that.
I love it. Well, let's jump to blogs next, because I feel like more of our listeners are going to have a blog. Okay, first up, when it comes to spring cleaning for your blog, is something very easy. Look for internal linking opportunities for every new post. Kelsey, what does that look like?
Yeah, this is another one of those great, super it isn't going to take a lot of brain power, and you can kind of it's one of those tasks that you can feel like you're making progress on without having to exercise this whole new creative energy. And it's going to be one of those under an hour things that just is great. So when you are either writing a new post or even honestly going back and looking at some past articles too, look for ways that you can link something else from your content into that. It's maybe an old blog post you wrote or a landing page or something like that. Anytime you can be linking other things into your content, it's just going to keep people in that same spiral of interacting with your content, understanding who you are, drawing them in. We talk a lot about how content marketing shouldn't feel like just all these arrows going separate directions, but almost like one time Austin held up a fidget spinner and spun it and it just was all working together. Same thing applies here. And so this is one of those tasks that can feel like, oh, I don't really have, time to do it in my day to day. It's not something you're maybe doing in your normal strategy, but it's a great little spring cleaning task where you're going to feel so productive and accomplished when you're done with it, and serve your people really well in any piece of content that they're taking in.
Totally. Yes. And it's such like a lens to just like look through when you're creating content, because it's really easy just to write stuff and be like, okay, the blog is done. But just taking that extra step, it really helps with SEO, when you're thinking about that. But it also just helps people move to like resources that they might be interested in as well. So, we have a client at Savage Content that supports the foster care community in Houston. And they have a bunch of different programs and services. And, even just little things like whenever we write the word babysitting, we're often linking to their babysitter training that they have. Or when we write the word like trauma informed, we're just like linking the word trauma informed to their trauma informed trainings, which again, just like reinforces that sort of like web of how things are connecting internally. But also if people are curious about where that goes, they can, of course, click on it. And you can even go one step further too, and just be thinking of like, what are the other resources that relate to this topic? And you can even just put those as kind of like call outs throughout the article. That's something we do at Savage Content as well, is, just use like, especially if you have a WordPress site, like you use the pull quote feature, and you can put, listen and put like a podcast episode title that relates to, a paragraph or a section of your article. And it's just a great way to just constantly be putting next steps kind of in front of people. You don't want that to fully take away from whatever that main call to action of an article is. But every interaction that somebody gets with your brand is so, so, so valuable. And so being able to lead them from an article to a podcast episode, like you were saying, Kelsey, can really make a difference in solidifying their trust and still kind of leading them down that funnel towards that primary offer.
Yeah. And honestly, even though we're talking about blogs right now, this is a concept you can apply in so many places. True. I think of even emails that you write. Just, if I just wrote one the other day for a client where it was like, I just shared with my, friends over on Instagram, and just link the word Instagram so that they have the option to hop right over there if they want. Yes. Just always giving them that invite.
Totally. Okay, this next one is refreshing past posts, especially posts that are intended to be evergreen content. If you're not familiar, evergreen content is just things that can just like operate and work for you anytime. It's just content that is always going to be valuable to your audience. It's not really going to be outdated anytime soon. It's just, kind of always working for you in the background. Often evergreen content is going to be some of your more popular content, so even if you just have the ability to look at what blogs have been performing best, hopefully you're finding some of those in your top 10 or top 20 articles that you have on your site. But for this episode, I want to encourage you to go back and look through 5 pieces of evergreen content for your brand, 5 of those core articles that you've written that just kind of continue to do well. And just look back through those posts and see what needs to be updated. Are there dates that we mentioned that we could, maybe mention something more recent? Is there a way that we talked about this program or this service that we don't talk about it anymore? Is this graphic outdated and we could just freshen it up a little bit? I mean, again, just something, it doesn't have to take long. You could literally just be swapping out 3 words in the article, but just making sure that it still represents your brand accurately and still is just up to date with recent information and data, and things like that. And then put those blogs back in your content rotation. So update them, get them ready, and then figure out and think through where can you share them again on social? Where can you push them again in your emails? These are evergreen pieces of content. These are things that you want people to find. And so you don't want them to stay hidden, kind of in your promotion and just like on your blog feed, even though they're working for you on an SEO level, but put them out in front of people again and just use them in your marketing. It's a great way to give you content for the rest of the year, but also to just make sure that content is updated at the same time.
Another one that comes to mind here is for those of you listening who maybe have some affiliate links, or you are in the influencer world, making sure any of those links are fresh, or, that product hasn't gone out of stock and you need to, have a new one. There's nothing more frustrating than like getting to an article and clicking on something and it's like product not available. So easy win there where you can make sure you're getting the people what they want and then you're getting the commission on what you're sharing.
Totally. Last one on the blog side is grounding your blog strategy in your content pillars, making sure that you're writing content about the things that you actually want to write content about. Kelsey, how do you see this play out?
I like that this one is like a little bit not super practical. And so you have to get some. No, this is really good. Again, when you're sitting down to think about your content planning, or you're feeling that, paralyzing moment of like, oh, what do I talk about? This is where to come back to. And so whether that's, spring cleaning up your mindset around this, or just spring cleaning your actual strategy when you sit down, thinking about writing for topics that have to do with what you are offering your people, it just makes sense. We want to keep our strategy and our communication clear. We want the steps that we, want them to take to be obvious. We want to invite them into the topics that make sense around what we're sharing. Too many pieces of information going too many different directions is just confusing and doesn't serve our audience well. It's going to cause frustration for us then when it doesn't feel like it's working. And so kind of having, like you said, a lens that you're looking through when you are thinking about articles you want to write, content you want to share. Do these things support those, 4 to 5 main pillars that you're talking about, and specifically the offers that you have?
Yeah. I think it is rare in some ways that we see like, super far outliers, for client content, but it does happen. I know
I can think of a few.
I can think of a few too. Yeah. But often it's a little more subtle of just things that are like, that are adjacent to your world, but don't actually connect back to something that you can, a next step that you can give people. Yeah. I think the most drastic example that's coming to mind for me is when you were at Savage Content as well. We had a client doing a lot of work in like marriage and parenting spaces. Yeah. And they had recently gone to like a fire safety museum.
This is the one I was thinking of too.
And this is like crazy. And you and I both, and will be like the first ones to say, like, content performs on a human level. Like, listen, if you can share any piece of content, and that's going to help people, connect with you, even if it doesn't, connect back to those things. But this was something that we wrote a whole article on fire safety tips that they had learned at this like experience that they went to. And it did really well. A lot of people engaged with it. And both you and I were kind of like, I don't like that it did as well as it did. But the problem with that is just that we didn't have that easy bridge from a piece of content like that into any of their offers, or into kind of like even just any of their other content. Like there weren't just those natural bridges from, hey, let me teach you about fire safety into like, and here are 10 other parenting tips, for you to take advantage of. Like it just was a little more clunky. So the opportunity there is you can have content like that every once in a while, but when you're thinking of like your strategy and what you want to go after, and as you're planning out your blog content calendar, make sure that the content that you are really trying to focus on and spend your energy on are things that people are going to be interested in. It's going to answer questions around, your industry, but then it's going to be easy for you to do that internal linking or to give specific calls to action to a course you offer, a product you sell, a service that you offer, those kinds of things, because that's where you're going to get the biggest return on that time that you're spending to write it.
Yep, totally. One-offs are fine here and there, but for the bulk of your content, really think through this lens.
Into the world of podcasts.
Here we are.
We go. If you don't have a podcast, we promise this section will be quick. But if you do have a podcast, these are very easy things to do. And I'm sorry, Kelsey, but there are some that are not as tactical, but they're really quick. So
it's okay.
I hope that
it's okay. You have been in the podcast world for years. You talked me into becoming a host on a podcast. So I trust you here. Take it away.
But the same thing, this first one on the podcast front, this is the same thing that Kelsey, you talked about at the front of the episode of looking at your highest performing content on social media. You can do the exact same thing on your blog. Truly, this takes 10 minutes. Scroll back through your feed. If you're on Buzzsprout and that's your podcast, hosting platform, or you have a video show and it's on YouTube, just like go back through and look at what topics have performed well, which of my episodes have done the best. Also, like which guests have been most interesting to my audience. And as you're planning out your podcast, that is great information for you to have, because those are topics you need to revisit. Those are guests you should have back on the show for a follow-up conversation. And those are styles of episodes that you should really lean into. So, not just like running forward blind, but really looking at what has performed well in the past. We can do the same thing that we're doing on social for our podcast, really for any type of content, but very, very valuable on that front as well.
And just a reminder, we talked about this on our mindset episode, but you think people have heard it too much. They have not. So if it's a high performing topic that you're like, man, I just feel like I've talked about this, they haven't heard it as much. And so don't be afraid to lean into circling back to that and just creating new content around that same idea.
Totally. We edit a video series, which is similar to a podcast for an agriculture company based here in Illinois. Every year, kind of the host of that series always kind of can get in his head a little bit of like, what we revisit this topic every single year. Like, I feel like I'm just like saying the same things until I'm like blue in the face a little bit, but it's just with new numbers. Like it's just with our kind of like most recent data that we're getting. And almost every year, those same episodes that we're creating year over year continue to do the best. And so when we look back at that data, it can really help give us actually that correct filter to look at those things through, to not just assume people are annoyed by this, but to be able to see, actually, that's not true. This is consistently our most popular content. Then it gives you permission to continue with it and, to feel confident kind of continuing to run in that direction.
Yeah. I really like the second one because we did this and it has made a big difference. So go for it.
Switching from Zoom to a locally recorded solution like Riverside. So we record in Riverside. Riverside.fm is the website for it. There are some other ones out there. Zencastr, I think, was a big one for a while. I know that there's some other solutions that are coming out right now. I think Riverside just continues for the most part to outperform those and kind of be, what's becoming a standard. But the difference is if you're recording in Zoom, which is a very, very common thing for podcasts to do, and it is totally fine if you have done that up until this point. But the quality difference is pretty drastic, for the two. So Zoom is sending your audio and your video kind of like up to the cloud, and then it's recording it there. So like your internet connection matters a lot. And, there's just kind of like a lower quality that's kind of being recorded in the end. Whereas a solution like Riverside.fm is recording from your computer directly. So it's, whatever you are recording is like almost exactly what's being recorded to Riverside. And so it's recording your content at a higher quality. A small thing, you can still have guests on it, but really for the quality of your show, and especially if you've been doing it for a long time, can just make a really kind of big difference for listener experience as a whole. So really small tweak, same process, other than signing up for the platform, doesn't really take you any time. But again, from a quality perspective, can make a big difference.
I feel like it's really intuitive too, and a pretty simple platform to use. So like you're saying, it's one of those things that could just be a really small change, but you could see a lot of quality benefits from it from just a simple, different website that you're going to.
It really is good. And honestly, we had a couple issues with Riverside probably a couple years ago, and it feels like those have been fixed as well. So I think that like the platform just has continued to improve. And I think like even just our experience with recording in Riverside has consistently gotten better over the years as well. So the third one is really making sure as you're thinking about your podcast and, you know, just how you're framing episodes, what the structure of episodes is, you know, there's so many changes that you could make to your podcast. You know, you could change your intro and outro music as you're freshening it up. You could, you know, shift up your intro and outro that you're saying. You know, you could add new segments. Like there's so many changes that you could make, but a lot of those take time. They take, you know, just like thinking through that lens. Yeah. And so kind of an easier win on this front is just making sure, does your podcast connect clearly back to your brand? I think it's really easy, especially for podcasts. It's all auditory. You know, there's very little kind of visual components, especially for an audio only show. So it's really easy for like the content to kind of exist separate from your brand, like for it not to be totally clear to a listener, kind of like where the content is coming from or where their next step should be. And so a great filter and just a great question that you can ask is, does my content connect clearly back to my brand? You know, is it clear for people like who this content is from? Is it clear what we do? Is it clear if they're interested in, you know, the topics that we're talking about, how they can take a next step? And just adding something in to help with that if it's not clear. Could be a mid-roll commercial, could just be something up front where you're saying like, this podcast is brought to you by fill in the blank company name, and this is what we do. You know, just making sure that those really kind of like clear touch points with your brand are evident throughout the episode.
I think that's such good encouragement for you listening. Again, we want these spring cleaning tips to be approachable, doable, simple. And so we're not saying you have to go, you know, record new music and have a whole new, you know, very complicated, fancy like intro situation. Like it's some simple questions to ask yourself and a lens to think through, and could be as simple as just a different way you say a sentence when you sit down to record. So be encouraged by that. This is approachable and doable, and we want to give you those simple wins.
Totally. So if I can, Kelsey, can I leave everybody with just one overarching content marketing piece? I will
allow it. I will allow it.
A little less tactical on this front, but also as you're thinking of the rest of the year, just find your energy again for the content that you're creating. Really like think about like, what is it that I like about, you know, doing this? And you don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but just kind of getting back in touch with like, why do you like creating content for your brand? Like, why do you like building your brand? And why do you hope that more people find it? And just like giving yourself a little bit of mental space to just kind of like think of that, I think can also just help your content kind of go from this like task that has to be done. And it does make it fun, because marketing should be fun. We'll say it all the time. It's the title of our podcast for this reason. It's like, it's really special that you get to create content about something that you are building and something that you're creating or something that you're helping build, and being able to engage people in that is like really cool. That you can create content, people can read it, people can engage with it, and their lives can be better as a result. They can be connected to you and take a next step with you as a result. That's really fun. And so being able to just take that and just kind of, again, for yourself, almost, of course, this is a little bit of mindset work, but just remembering like, why do I feel excited about my brand? Why do I feel excited about creating content? Can just make the rest of the year go so well for you, and just how motivated you are to keep it going.
I have a feeling if you go back through this list, even as granular and as tactical as it feels, and you're looking back at things that have performed well, you're going to probably revisit comments or, you know, feedback people had. You're going to maybe add a little thing here or there that you feel excited and proud of. I just think that that's no small thing. I think you're going to be so re-energized and just reminded why you love what you do and where you've come from and where you are now. And that alone is going to bring such fresh spring energy, if you will, just to the whole rest of your year in your content and in the brand and business that you're building.
I love it. As always, we are cheering you on in the brand that you are building and the work that you are doing. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us here on the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. And we will see you right back here for the next episode.